Good morning, guys. Good morning. Today I'm back. I hope you all had a wonderful Sunday. Before I get into this lesson, if you are new coming across this video, hi, my name is Deidre. I am a certified life coach and I help rehabilitate women who have experienced toxic relationship cycles so they can boss up and break free. So, today I wanted to talk about how to build up your trust. I work with women who have experienced toxic relationship cycles, whether that has been within their family structure or whether it has been in, relationships with the significant other, friends, just outside situations. I kind of help with that. And one thing that I notice often is the trust factor is just not there. And what I want to do is just elaborate really quickly on how to build your trust from a cycle that has literally broken you. Because to be honest, when you are coming out of a very toxic relationship, it's very traumatic. And on top of that, you are very sensitive. And it's not in a bad way, but you're very sensitive to things, to people, to situations because you are now exposed to a lot of things that were false deceptions. And so now everything you see is in a lens of hurt, of brokenness. And even if a person may be a good person or maybe a nice person, it's hard for you to pick up on that because you're still tied to what has really distorted your heart a little bit. So I just want to help you out for a second. So I want you to understand what trust is because so many times we have a false sense of what trust is because it wasn't introduced to us in the proper way. So trust is a blueprint and a foundation of a relationship. It is completely hard to have a relationship that is not birthed out of trust. And I want to give you a scripture because y'all know I always have scriptures, but Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. You may have heard it before, but it's trust in the Lord with all your heart, lean not on your own understanding, but in all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. So, with this scripture, is basically saying put everything you have in God, everything you have. And if you put everything you have in God, then He will literally guide your steps. If you sit here and sacrifice your own understanding, sacrifice how well you think you know a thing, sacrifice your own preconceived notions about something, then you are now putting your trust in the Most High and having Him execute everything in your life, knowing that He will take care of you. So that's what trust looks like with God. But oftentimes we have a hard time, and I've said this before, of seeing God as God, even though we know He's God, because the relationships we have been tied to that have been very, very negative has now caused us to sit here and restrict God from being who He is. Not that He's not that, it's just that we restrict Him because our hurt has allowed us to just perceive everyone in a very dimming light. So, what I want you to understand with the first step of building trust, and I think about it like this: when you see a house, there is a process in constructing a house, right? Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes up to a year, maybe even longer, given the nature of how huge or big the land is, right? So with the process of building the house, in the beginning, it does not look like a house. Like you'll see a lot of just construction there, you see a lot of workers there, but initially it doesn't look like the most beautiful and extravagant home, right? But as you keep building, what happens? Eventually what is being built becomes what is intended to be, and that is a beautiful home, a home that you can dwell in, a home that you can relax in, a home where you can invite people in, that are dear to you, a home where you can make memories, right? So I kind of correlate that into what building trust looks like to somebody who is now learning how to love themselves again, learning how to build confidence again, learning how to sit here and just see things from a different perspective. So, the first thing with building trust is being honest. I think a lot of times what sits here and ruins new and fresh relationships is the fact that the person is not being honest. And what I mean by that is not being honest in the sense y'all have gotten deep in a relationship and y'all are just talking about certain issues. But when I mean by being honest, is being honest initially and saying, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. This is what my life was like growing up, or this is the type of relationships I have, and I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not really good at communicating right now. I'm not really good at really being vulnerable with you right now because a lot of things have broken my trust. So I'm going to have to be honest with you and say we're going to have to do this slowly. And that could be friendships, not just significant other relationships, but you're being honest from the get go and letting them know, like, hey, I'm going to be honest with you. This toxic and impactful relationships, they did a number on me. So I have to be honest with you and let you know how I react to stuff, what is going on in my mind. And you know what this does? It allows the person to have an understanding of the type of boundaries they need to have concerning you so they won't disrespect you. And a lot of times people they enter into a relationship being just full of self. And the thing about a relationship and any friendship, you have to learn how to bear one another's burdens. No, that doesn't mean you have to sit here and just drain yourself, because a relationship is not draining when it's healthy. But that's you having an understanding of how somebody communicates, having an understanding of somebody's heart. So when you are connecting with each other, nobody is stepping on toes unintentionally or unintentionally, and nobody is doing something that is literally going to now cause a deeper hurt in somebody's heart. And so I think it's important in the beginning that you be honest with somebody and just let them know. Just be honest. Hey, I'm very insecure right now, so I'm just going to tell you there's a lot of things that has caused me to perceive stuff a certain way. So I think what's best with us, if we come across a disagreement, that hey, we either talk about it or we do X, Y, and Z. But being honest and open is opening the door for the person to not sit here and have miscommunication with you and not have an understanding with you, and ultimately not crossing boundaries because you're setting something up. Secondly, is something I've already mentioned with the first one, but being vulnerable. I think with a lot of people who I've seen who have endured with toxic things, vulnerability is a hard thing. It's not hard at first because it takes time to get to the point where you can be very vulnerable. It takes a lot of things where people are just literally doing numbers on your heart to the point now you are literally like a statue. It's very hard. Your heart is very hardened. It's hard for people to get in there. You have to put a tough exterior because that's your coping mechanism for being able to guard what has already been broken multiple times. So vulnerability though is necessary. If you're not vulnerable, if you're not in a place where you can sit here and, like I said, being honest with yourself, you're really causing more hurtful impact to come up on you. Versus if I'm honest and vulnerable, at least the person can have a straight up knowledge of, hey, this is what it is. You know what I'm saying? And either if they are healthy relationship, they can now know how to adjust and maneuver to make you comfortable where you are still feeling respected and you're not feeling like someone is just toiling with you. Okay. And lastly, building your own self-awareness before, as a person that has endured toxic things, I think it is so important that we don't just hop into the next relationship or the next friendship. I think about it like this. I believe I even said this one time with the scenario, but when you are in a hospital, right? And you have an infection or you have some type of sickness that may be contagious or just something that requires you to have medicine. Ultimately, in that medication, it always says, take this for X and X days. And even if you start feeling better, you still need to take it. And the reason why they say that, because sometimes we can sit here and get in a place where we think, okay, I'm free from this, like it's not bothering me anymore. I don't feel like I need anything, so I'm ready. I'm ready to sit here and connect with people. I'm ready to do this. But in actuality, we don't understand, just because we're starting to feel better doesn't necessarily mean we don't need something to keep continuously flushing out those toxins so we can be fully healed. And so oftentimes what happens is, when we think we're ready, when we are not necessarily crying over the matter, then that's the ultimate indicator that, okay, I can live life and now connect with anybody, not understanding you are one trigger and one action away for the very thing that has not been fully eliminated to sit here and wreak havoc on somebody else again. So, what I want to encourage you is to start focusing on self awareness. So, what does that mean? Sometimes, sis, you're going to have to be alone for a season. Okay, you're going to have to be alone for a season, because what this allows you to do, I didn't necessarily say isolation, I just said alone, because what this allows you to do, to start sitting here and confronting self. And I think a lot of times when we are having relationships that are not producing the right stuff, is typically because we are not knowing who we are. So we get into connections, we get in interactions with people, and because we don't know who we are, we don't know how to be handled, we don't know what triggers us, we don't know necessarily how we process things, we don't know how to effectively communicate, because half of the time we don't know what we're feeling, because we haven't given ourselves time to understand how we feel towards matters. So when we enter into certain relationships and friendships, because we are confused at how we operate, we now sit here and operate dysfunctionally to others. And so I want to caution you on learning how to use your alone season as a season of self awareness, where you are getting knowledgeable on self. You're getting knowledgeable on self. You're obtaining the knowledge that God already has concerning you. You're using this time to replace yourself, to establishing a relationship to the one who is perfect and does no wrong. Because to be honest, and y'all know I'm going to talk about God, but to be honest, when you are having a relationship with God, I kid you not, when you are having a perfecting relationship with God, his perfection and his knowledge concerning you now impresses itself on your heart and mind. And now the things that used to allow you to see things in a negative route, you're able to see God how he sees you. And ultimately, when you hop and get into that level of seeing, you now are able to see people in a different manner. And be honest, the more stabilized relationship you have with God, you also have a sensor, a monitor around who may not be the best for you. So there won't ever be an open door where somebody who doesn't have the right motive or intent can casually walk in. They can't do that. You know why? Because the perfecter has perfected your eyes to not only see yourself in a whole place, but also to see others who may not connect with your wholeness. And so I just want to encourage you to understand that building trust also does take time when you're coming from a toxic environment. It does. And when you are exposed to a lot of toxins, there's a lot of steps and processes that needs to be done physically to remove those toxins. And that's the same thing when it comes to your emotional, cognitive, and all of that health. You need to sit here and have steps in place on learning how to slowly build trust. So being honest and being vulnerable is something that needs to be done when you're thinking about speaking to people and having those type of connections. But self-awareness is done through the secret and privacy of your life in your home. What you need to be attentive more, because the better you know yourself, the better you know how to sit here and handle relationships with care. because how you treat yourself is a reflection of how you're going to treat others. And so many times we do have a high expectation of what we want from a relationship, but we don't even sit here and operate in the very thing we're desiring from somebody else. It's hard to sit here and want trustworthiness from somebody when we're not even honest with ourselves. It's hard to sit here and want care from somebody when we don't even care for ourselves. Every 5 seconds, we're sitting here demeaning and demoralizing ourselves, how we look, what we perceive our thoughts, what we perceive our situations to be. And so, what I want to tell y'all too, relationships are also a result of what you are doing within yourself. How your relationships thrive are sometimes concerning with what you accept. Not all the time. I'm not saying this with all the time, but what I see in adult years concerning relationships, um, it really reflects the mirror you have up within yourself at this certain time. So what I just want to encourage you to understand that any lack of trust is going to breed insecurity. And we don't want insecure relationships. We don't want relationships that are like just fluctuating all the time, that is not conducive, because relationships can cause you to have stagnancy within your life too, within your purpose and all of that. So, what I want you to understand, to avoid lack of trust and to avoid insecurity, we have to build a security within ourselves. And building self awareness, building identity, and building all of that is what's going to ultimately cause the trust to eventually build up to the point now you can open your doors in and people can come in and habitate with you, and there not be like animosity, friction, toxic conflicts, none of that. So I just wanted to just share that with you. And that's all I have today. But I love you guys. I absolutely love y'all. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Choose to have a wonderful day. And until next time, I will see everyone soon. Love you guys.